Okay, so there is a huge constitutional clash unfolding right now on the streets of Minnesota. We're talking about a high-stakes standoff that's pitting state and local governments against federal immigration authorities. And it's forcing us to ask some really fundamental questions about power in America.
And wow, that quote from Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, it really just lays it all out there, doesn't it? When a city's own leader uses a word like invasion to describe what the federal government is doing, you know things have hit a boiling point. So let's take a closer look at what's actually happening on the ground.
All right, first up, let's talk about what this conflict actually looks like. What's happening in the streets?
Well, the scenes coming out of Minneapolis are chaotic, to say the least. Sources are describing these daily super tense confrontations. You've probably seen the videos, protesters throwing fireworks at federal agents, and the agents responding with things like tear gas and pepper spray, even flashbang grenades, all to clear the streets while they're trying to conduct their operations.
And the scale of this is just staggering. According to ICE officials, this isn't just people yelling. In just one 5-day period, 60 protesters were arrested for actively impeding or, in some cases, even assaulting federal officers. That number alone shows you just how high the stakes are for everybody involved, and it really sets the stage for the big legal battle that's happening now.
So the big question is, how did we get here? Let's take a look at the legal case that Minnesota and Illinois are building against the federal government. And there's that argument again from Mayor Frey. He's not just saying that ICE is overstepping its authority. He's claiming that their tactics, their very presence, is a direct violation of the Constitution. And this slide really breaks down the core of their lawsuits. They're alleging federal overreach, arguing that these operations are a form of political targeting, all because of their sanctuary city status. They're pointing to what they call unnecessary escalations and flagrant abuses of power. They're basically saying that sending dozens of agents to arrest just one person is completely disproportionate and is actually making their cities less safe.
But of course, there are two sides to every story. So let's flip the coin and look at the federal government's justification. And you'll see it paints a completely different picture.
And this right here, this is the whole conflict in a nutshell. It's a fundamental disagreement on what's even happening. On one side, you have the claim of an unconstitutional invasion, and on the other, the federal government says, no, we're simply carrying out our mission to enforce federal law.
Federal officials argue their case is actually pretty straightforward. First, they say what they're doing is completely legal based on laws passed by Congress. They point right to the Constitution's Supremacy Clause, which basically says when state and federal laws clash, federal law wins. It's the supreme law of the land. Second, they say these big public operations are a direct result of sanctuary policies. When local jails won't cooperate and they release people ICE wants to detain, well, the agents have no choice but to find and arrest them out in the community, which is obviously more public and way more dangerous for everyone. And to back up their public safety argument, ICE released this partial list of people they've arrested in Minnesota. And when you look at it, the convictions are for some extremely serious crimes. We're talking about homicide, sexual assault of a child, rape. From the federal perspective, these are the kinds of dangerous individuals they say sanctuary policies are putting back on the street. All of this really brings us to a critical tension at the very heart of this conflict, the rights of an individual versus the safety of the entire community.
A lot of this debate has really crystallized around the tragic shooting death of a protester named Renee Good, who was killed during a confrontation with federal agents. Her case raises this crucial question. In the middle of all this chaos on the streets, what happens to due process? And not just for the people being arrested, but for the officers involved too.
So on one side, you have the argument laid out here by Congressman Maxwell Frost, who's been a very vocal critic of ICE's tactics. He and others, they look at the video of that incident and they conclude that a split-second judgment was made on the street and that it completely violated a fundamental constitutional right. But then you have the counterargument, posed here by Fox News host Will Cain directly to the congressman. His point is that the principle of innocent until proven guilty has to apply to the officer too. He's arguing that calling the agent a murderer before any investigation is finished is in itself a rejection of due process. And what makes this all even more complex is the environment these agents are operating in. According to the Department of Homeland Security, there has been a 1,300% increase in physical assaults against federal agents. 1,300%. That statistic really highlights the immense pressure cooker these officers are working in every single day. And if you thought that was shocking, get this, an 8,000% increase in death threats. These numbers are just unreal. They are absolutely central to the federal argument that their agents are facing unprecedented levels of danger. and it just underscores how high the stakes are for everyone involved. Okay, so let's pull the camera back and look at the biggest picture of all, because this is about way more than just one city. It's about the balance of power in the United States. You know, this quote really says it all. The core of this conflict is a fundamental question about power. Who has the ultimate authority on immigration, the states or the federal government? It's literally a battle over sovereignty itself. You can really break this whole collision course down into 3 steps. First, you've got sanctuary states claiming they have a right to kind of opt out of certain federal immigration enforcement. Second, the federal government comes back and points to the Constitution, arguing it has the power to enforce its laws everywhere, no exceptions. And the result? Well, it's this massive legal and cultural clash we're seeing play out on the streets and in the courts. So what's happening in Minnesota is so much more than a local news story. It is a national stress test of federalism itself. The outcome here, whatever it is, could set a huge precedent for future clashes between state and federal power, and it could have a really lasting impact on how our country works. And all of that leaves us with the ultimate question. In a system that's designed with all these checks and balances, when 2 powerful government forces collide head-on like this, who's supposed to back down? And what happens if neither one does?